Frankie, thank you so much for the time this evening. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I want to start our interview off today by sort of talking about some on-screen stuff. Obviously, as we talk at the beginning of March, you've just been suspended by Santino Marella. I mean, I don't want to ask an obvious question, but how are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm actually not feeling too bad. I got a paid vacation for a while. So, I'm sitting at home here in beautiful Southern California, waiting until I hear further what they plan to do with me. So, it's kind of the ribs on them.
Yeah,
I'm,
okay.
I'm just biding my time, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was a promo that you delivered, obviously, when they banned you from the last event, and you said it. Is it the right thing for Santino to do to fire you? So, what is the right thing for Santino to do at the moment?
Well, strictly talking from, what I've done in my history with the company and, my place in the company right now, I don't know if that's the best thing is,
Yeah,
leaving someone like me at home, right now when we got this momentum, where we're in the middle, at the beginning really of this rebrand and, and a lot of other things that I need to discuss personally with Santino. But, yeah, I just don't know if he used his best judgment.
yeah, yeah. Well, that remains to be seen. Talking about kind of where you're at, and obviously the TNA rebrand and everything that's happened. What is it in the water at TNA that brings people like yourself back? You've been everywhere. You've had, 25 plus years now in wrestling. Obviously, Eric Young, who you've just feuded with, came back as well. What is it that brings original talent back? There must be something special in that water at TNA.
Well, for a lot of us, we have a connection with this company. Guys like Eric Young, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, myself, to a certain extent, Eddie Edwards, Josh Alexander. It's where we really got our break. For me, it was the first time I got to perform on a national stage was, in the TNA arena, in the Asylum in those early years. And it's where I cut my teeth on TV wrestling. And a lot of those other gentlemen did the same.
Mm.
And so, you always have that warm spot and that fondness, especially being a guy that was there, like right at the beginnings of day one. It just, you always kind of, that's your roots, and I'm the type that never forgets where I came from. And also, I'm very, very in favor and appreciative of the work that everyone has put in to bring TNA back to where we currently are. And I have a lot of faith and belief in our team, and really like what the company's doing and where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that in a minute with some of the people that have come in, and because I want to get your perspective, as an original on some of those talents. But in terms of if you can sort of take me to other places as much as you can, what is it that TNA does differently compared to other places you've been across your career that creates and cultivates a space? As I see as a fan, that sort of lifts people up, lifts talents up, gives them whether it's a career second wind or that first step, that first supportive kind of push up the ladder, as it were. It feels like TNA's always been about that. And I wonder, wanted to get your perspective as someone that's been there from nearly the very beginning, and is there now, has been other places. Is that the vibe in TNA? Has that always been the way? Cultivating talent, creating opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that's always, people have always looked to that. TNA has become a destination where people want to go. It's whereas years ago it was, maybe a place where they would get looked at to go elsewhere. But one of the strong suits of the company right now, in my opinion, is roster size. We have a great locker room, the best I've ever been a part of. Good people, good human beings, and amazing talent. And, our roster size is such that everybody can be somewhat featured on our television shows and our pay-per-views. We don't have 120 guys and, 40 or 50 of them are featured on a week-to-week basis, maybe. And while the others sit and do nothing. And that's very unwarranted because a lot of, in other places, there's a lot of very talented people sitting on the bench. Our roster size is such that everybody, if they're not featured, they have a spot on the show. And
Mm.
which is very beneficial. to us, the wrestlers, it's very beneficial to the fans because, they only have to focus on the 2 hours that they get to see our television program. That's just it, that word focused. I think our shows are a lot more focused, and that really, really benefits us.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, again, some of the talent that have come in, there's obviously, been such a spotlight for the last few years on, on the great talent of TNA, obviously now with Nick Nemeth and Mustafa Ali coming in as well. Are you excited? I mean, obviously I don't want to assume that you're just excited. You may be a little annoyed that they've come in, but are you excited by Nemeth and Mustafa Ali being in TNA and having prominent spots and again, bringing sort of their spotlight into TNA as well? Can that only be a good thing for the company? I don't want to put words in your mouth, of course.
A great thing for the company. No, I pushed hard for Nick Nemeth the day that I found out he was going to be available. I put in a call immediately, and a couple other guys too. He's a guy that I've known for a long time. I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And a guy that kind of got put in that same box that I've kind of been put in at certain points in my career where we were kind of labeled underrated, the what could have been. Though he's had an amazing run, that dude, but still going strong. And I like to think the same can be said for me. So, when you talk about, I hate this word, but dream match scenarios, he's always a guy that I really want to get in there, mix it up with. Like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him as an athlete and as a person. So I was very much in favor of getting him in, and I'm very, very psyched that he decided to come to TNA. Mustafa Ali, I didn't have a relationship. I didn't really know him beforehand. I just met him in Louisiana, and again, an amazing in-ring talent. Being there watching him and Chris Sabin was an outstanding match. And again, a really good person. And, I'm all for, if you're going to benefit our company and raise our company to the heights I want to take it to, you're welcome in my locker room. As long as you're a good person, a good human being, and selfless like our locker room is. And both those gentlemen are, and they've both been so far, they've, knocked it out of the park every time they've been out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to see, and I really hope we see you back in on regular television soon. But in terms of that kind of, you talk about bringing people into the locker room. You have been in various locker rooms. You've seen not just TNA grow and develop, but other companies grow and develop from infancy. And you've talked about that before in previous interviews. So as you've seen other companies and TNA grow and develop, what have you learned about yourself, Frankie, from those very early days in TNA? How have you changed and developed as you've seen TNA do so, as you've seen other companies do so? How have you changed and developed as a person? What have you learned about yourself from the very beginnings of your career to where you are now? Because you've obviously been through some different phases, different gimmicks, different promotions. You're obviously in a band as well, so you've got lots of fingers in different pies. So what have you learned about yourself from the beginning of your entertainment career, shall we put it, to where you are now?
I mean, I've grown as a wrestler. Obviously, you're doing this 25, almost 26 years. You're not gonna continue to grow. But I've grown as a businessman and learning, the fundamentals of not just performing as an in-ring talent, but the fundamentals of the business. Again, being a part of a startup back in 2003 when I started with TNA, and being, in on the ground floor in AEW before that company even had initials. I'm in a pretty unique position there. I've been in, two very prominent companies from almost the beginning. In AEW's case, from the very beginning, from before the beginning. And like, 2003, I was still, again, just learning, what TV wrestling and pay-per-view wrestling was all about. So TNA really helped me, establish myself, establish my name in the marketplace. Fast forward to 2018, when the discussions of what AEW was going to become, I was a much, much wiser man, and, had made a lot of connections, made a lot of friends, made a lot of mistakes in the business, but I was in a position where I was there to help the company start up. When we were discussing, who's going to produce this show, I immediately piped up and said, Keith Mitchell. He's the only guy that could do it. Do you know him? He said, yes, I have a good relationship with him. I put in a call to Keith Mitchell, and that got the ball rolling on that. So, I just, I learned, I think if you ask what I've learned about myself, I think I've learned my value. my
Mm.
value in the industry. I've, again, I like to think I have a pretty good reputation and being around this long. And, this business is all about relationships. We always say it's never goodbye, it's see you later, because if the last couple of years hasn't told everyone how crazy this business is, you just never know what's going to happen. So, I've tried to not burn any bridges. I've always tried to approach every company, every person, whether in the ring or part of the crew, with respect, and just be a good businessman and a good human being, because that, I think, is what's lacking. So yeah, I think I've learned, my value. I've learned what I can add to any company I'm in, or any promotion. And I'm still learning, man. I'm a work in progress, just like all of us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm really fascinated to ask this question to you, Frankie, because it's a week to talk about legacy, obviously with Sting's last match, and obviously legacy is a big thing in wrestling. And as somebody with 25 plus years, I don't know if it's a dirty word for you, really. Do you consider your legacy as a performer yet? I know you're not done. I'm not implying anything
Yeah.
close, but do you consider your legacy as a performer? Does that come into your awareness?
I mean, it's only natural to start thinking about those things, as you get older, as you mature. That's I look at. I always, going back to being a kid, I just wanted to be a wrestler. I never thought about the initials on the ring skirt. I never thought about getting a paycheck to do it. I
Mm,
just wanted to be a wrestler.
mm.
Uh, you know, and then you know, all these years later, all of a sudden, wow, I've been doing this a long time. So it's still kind of, sometimes it's really, I have to kind of step out of myself and look at my body of work and what I've done, and what I've achieved, and it's kind of mind blowing. But yeah, when in terms of, it's easy for you when you talk about a guy like Sting to talk about that legacy, because you're talking about 35 plus years, and he's legitimately one of the most famous wrestlers ever. Like, I don't think anybody can argue that. But yeah, like I don't know if I were to, if I were to wrap things up tomorrow, I don't necessarily, I couldn't pinpoint what my legacy would be, other than, again, being that guy that was able to, go out there with literally anybody and entertain, and a guy that could be, you know, trusted. That's what a good thing. A utility guy. I could be trusted to do anything with anybody, in established federations and startup federations, and a guy that hopefully left the business better than he found it. That's kind of always been my intention since day one at Killer Kowalski's school,
Yeah.
and I still very much strive to do that. And I'm very much have an old school mentality about how I approach the business.
Yeah, yeah. Listening to you talk about it, that passion is still there, that excitement is still there, which is great to see, Frankie. So, with my next question, last couple now. My next question is not, do you have anything left to do? Because as a fan, having watched you for years, you've won pretty much everything there is to win. You've traveled around the world doing this as a wrestler and a performer. To me, I'm like, as a fan, I'm like, well, what is there left to do? So the question is not what's left to do, but do you feel like you have anything left to prove, Frankie? And if so, what?
I mean, I'm always, the person I need to impress the most is myself. That's the
Mm,
person I need to prove anything to. I gave up trying to prove myself to others a long time ago. But yeah, no, I still, I very much strive and desire to uh, be a world champion in a prominent company, and that company's TNA. And that is a goal. I've never been the guy. I've won X Division titles, tag team titles, 6-man titles. I mean,
yeah,
in a lot of different places, in
yeah,
a lot of different places. But I'd be remiss if I said I didn't want to be a world champion, because I think I've proved that I can be, and it's just something that's um, not been in the cards thus far, but um, I'm going to make that happen. That's a goal that I see, that I'm really focusing on. So yeah, I mean, being the guy for a company, being the guy for TNA, the world champion, is something that I think I've worked very, very hard to get, and something that I think I've earned the opportunity to fight for.
absolutely, I absolutely agree. And I think that is one of the things that would just be a fantastic story of success. Someone that has built such a legacy and be able to cap it off. Would that be, you know, we talked about legacy a minute ago. Would that be success for you, Frankie? Would you feel, obviously this, you know, you've achieved a level of success now, but would that be the pinnacle at a TNA World Championship run?
I mean, it certainly would be, you know, it would be a culmination of a life's work doing this, doing what I love,
Mm.
you know, to be rewarded with that. And, you know, you know, not only would it mean a lot to me, I think it would mean a lot to the people that have followed me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people that, you know, I get that, you know, like, hey, I'd love for you to be world champion one day. And, you know, for me to achieve that would be a victory for them because they've, you know, in a lot of cases been along this ride with me for, you know, whether it's been, you know, 5 months, 5 years, 20 years, 25 years, you know, so for them to see that, I equate it to I'm a musician, I'm a big music fan. I equate it to when a band gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, a lot of bands are like, they can take it or leave it, honestly, because what is a Hall of Fame? It's subjective,
Mm.
much like pro wrestling. But, you know, I've heard a lot of bands, a lot of singers, a lot of musicians say, you know, well, I'm happy, but I'm happy for our fans
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, our fans, you know, got to see us get inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that, you know, I would think that I would look at it that way also, that, you know, this is an achievement, yes, that I worked very hard for, but it's also, you know, a lot of people helped get me here. And for those people to see me achieve that, I think would be very special.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about those fans, we got to the plugging point now, Frankie. Is there a message for anyone, because you haven't just wrestled, you know, in TNA, you've been all over the world, like we say, we're in the UK, and you've got fans over here. Is there any message for not just fans of TNA, but fans of your own in the UK that have supported you and are, of course, watching on TNA Plus, YouTube, and DAZN?
Hey, man, the UK fans since day one have always been a different breed. And I mean that in the best possible way. You know, they've always been very passionate, very knowledgeable. You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, last time I was over there last year with TNA, there was fans in attendance that were in attendance when I was over there in 2003 for PWG and for various indies over the years. So they're very, very loyal. And again, they've been there with me every step of the way. You know, early on for World Wrestling All Stars, doing pay-per-views and live events over there. Uh, you know, again, they've been there with me. They're a very rabid fan bunch. I love going over there. I wish we could go over there more often. You know, it's looking like once a year at this point, but like I really hope we can push to get over there a lot more because you know, I still think the fan base over there, while you have some amazing shows and talent, you know, they really enjoy seeing a TNA or a WWE come over there because that doesn't happen as often as I think it should. But I think that those things are changing, and you know, the UK people are all of Europe, honestly, are speaking out, and I think you know the wrestling industry is listening.
Fantastic, Frankie. We can't wait to see you over here again. And thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.